everyone. We're broadcasting from the Smart Mobility Summit 2019. Several thousand mobility professionals gathered here in Tel Aviv these days. And here, behind the scenes of the summit, as a part of the EcoMotion community, GoTo is interviewing selected smart mobility experts. My name is Katya Rosenauer, and here with me is Yuval Karmi, Head of Business Analytics at Gett and an urban researcher. Hi, Yuval.
Hi, Katya.
Good to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Okay. Before we begin, I want to play a little game of your personal choices. I'll be asking questions very fast, and you have to answer them also very fast without
English?
thinking. Yes, please. Okay. Bike or car?
Car.
Uh-oh. Train or plane?
Train.
Swimming or running?
Neither.
Good for you. Car sharing or taxi?
Taxi.
That's very loyal. iPhone or Android?
Android.
Amazon or AliExpress?
Ali.
Elevator or stairs?
Elevator.
Okay. That's very interesting. And I like how you take taxi. It's very important. Yuval, I'd like to hear a little bit about what brought you to mobility and what's your background. What is urban economism? Yeah, what do you do?
Okay, so the thing is, I'm actually an architect. That's what I studied many years ago. And I was dealing with models of cities, the theory behind the models of the city. And the city is actually transportation. We think about city as buildings, we think about city as stores and things like that. But city is people moving around.
Is it how you were taught?
No, that's
okay.
not the way they teach it. Not in architecture, of course. Architects think that they are building the city. But if there is a building and it's empty, it's actually out of the city. It's not part of the city. If we block some lot, then that lot is not in the city anymore. So actually, I'm looking at the way that people are moving in the city, and that impact the city economy, and of course that impact back the way that people are moving in the city. So transportation for me is one of the main things that drive the city growth, that drive the people happiness in the city.
Or unhappiness.
Or
most of the time.
unhappiness in the traffic or outside of the traffic. But that's the main things that I'm studying.
Okay, so you just told me before we began that you do not believe that autonomous cars that we're all, are believing in will be working in the city the way that people think they will. And basically what I understood that this is bound to fail, this whole concept and whole vision. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so actually we have autonomous vehicle already with us for about 8 years or more.
As a concept, you mean, or?
No, the real one. We are using it almost every day. You've used it today.
I have to. It's a game. I have to guess.
You waited for it at the station.
Elevator?
It's fully electrical. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And if you think about it, it works because it's on a very definite route, and it's totally separated from the other means of transportation. Now imagine an autonomous car in the street that is not like that. That is not something that travels slowly, stops in points, but the way that everyone envisions autonomous car. Now, the main thing that we request from the autonomous car is to behave like a robot, to protect human beings, like Asimov robot, the 3 laws of robots.
Yes.
So they shouldn't kill anyone. That's our restrictions. Today, when we cross the street as pedestrian, we look left and right, and we are not looking at the car. We are looking at the eyes of the driver. We want to make sure that the driver sees us before we cross the road. What if the driver sees us all the time, and he will stop at any condition? Of course, we're going to cross the road.
Also, having no eyes is kind of scary. Just a side note. Think about it. Wow.
Yeah, there is, by the way,
No
some
driver,
kind
no
of
eyes,
app that's going to add eyes to the car.
Right,
Sort
it
of
has
eyes.
to interact to you. So.
Yeah, create that interaction.
Okay, so basically you're saying if autonomous vehicles will always prioritize
Pedestrian, then pedestrian will know that they can cross whenever they want. Therefore, they will cross whenever they want, and the autonomous car are going to drive in the city less than 10 kilometers per hour.
Don't you think it's possible to find a workaround, like build a bridge or build a tunnel, and that would be, done, no?
Bridges, tunnels, fences, yeah, that can work, but then think about it. If we build a bridge or a tunnel, where do the autonomous car take passengers and get them off if it's not on the street level? So they need to work only on specific locations. They are actually like a train. If we build fences, then you can't just take passengers on and off on every point on the street. And you need to make the pedestrian go around it. It's not the city that we know today.
So basically you're saying that now traffic is blended, there are pedestrians, there are cars, but inside of the cars are the same humans as in the streets,
Yeah.
so that's why it works. And
It works because we're afraid.
Okay.
It works because we don't want to get killed. No one is jumping in front of a train. Train has license to kill. So you know not to jump in front of the train. But we ask from the autonomous vehicles to be the opposite. We ask them to stop whenever they see pedestrian. It doesn't work. Either give them a license to kill, or keep them out of the city, or keep them under 10 kilometers per hour.
Okay, so that makes this pink picture a bit more gray, I would say. So
Okay, I can make it black if you want.
yes, please.
Okay, so now think about autonomous car not blended with pedestrian, but in the highway. So we are in the highway, and in the highway it's the easiest way, it's the easiest place to blend autonomous cars. Because the traffic is going 40, 50, you gas, brake. You don't need to go, you don't need to pass anyone. It's very safe. I mean, the AI of today can take that task, and will, because it's level 3, level 4 autonomous car. So now you have cars that do the gas, brake by themselves. Is it easier for drivers or less easy for drivers?
But do they even need to do that? Gas, brake, are assuming they're all talking to one another and know where the traffic is going.
They are doing it less than our drivers today, but still there are some drivers, human drivers in the way, not just autonomous drivers. So that's the pace that they are going, and the people in the car are currently they are feeling frustrated. But in the new car, they will not feel that frustrated because someone else is doing the driving for them. Will there be, therefore, more people that will go to the city on rush hour or less? If it's more convenient.
Wait, I'm not sure it's more convenient though yet at this point.
What do you care? Today, I hate to go to the city in rush hour because it's a burden. It's a mental burden. And therefore, I'm trying to do everything to avoid that burden, including taking the train. Someone else is driving, I don't care about it, I don't think about it. But if someone else is driving also in my car, I'll just go with the car, blend, push, auto drive, wake me up in Tel Aviv. I can work, I can see a movie, I can just gaze out of the window. I don't care that much. Therefore, we're going to have more drivers that will do it. More people will go to the city in rush hour because it's not that much of a burden.
Okay, but my understanding that basically the desire of regulators and everyone that it's not one person per car. It's going to be at least 5 people or maybe more per car, and this way it's less cars, more people. No?
Yeah, it's more people in the same amount of cars.
So how's that the same?
Okay, I'll explain. As we all know, when we add a road to the highway,
A lane.
when we add a lane to the highway, very right afterwards, I mean a year or two, that lane is also booked, fully packed.
How do we know that? We have data to prove it?
Yeah, we have data to prove it. We have data when we added lanes. We have data when we removed lanes. The traffic congestion, the traffic speed remain more or less the same.
Regardless
If you compare it to the other lanes in the city, or you compare it to other cities in the same era. So we know that adding lane doesn't really change the traffic. If anything, it just adds more cars to the city center. So what does it change? Why should anything be different if we are actually adding the lane outside of the current cars or in the current cars? There is tremendous demand to get into the city that is not getting into the city today just because of traffic. If you open another lane, regardless if it's on top, within, or aside, people are going to flock in.
Okay.
The number of cars is limited. There's only one way actually to get rid of traffic jams, and that's to block the road.
Okay, so is that what you propose, or you think there's like some more human solution to that problem?
Yeah, I think we should stop thinking about we're going to solve the traffic jams. Traffic jams, traffic block, people that are waiting in the roads till they get to their destination has been here before the car and will be here as long as we have humans.
So what's the right way to think about it, though?
The way to think about it is whether we want to have more people in a certain place or less people in a certain place. They're going to get there through traffic. But do we want more people in the city center and therefore add lanes, add capacity, add whatever, or do we want less people in the city center?
So, and if I'm thinking this way, I'm thinking about adding more points of interest, around the city, so that the center of a city is not so attractive.
And that's the natural way things are going. It calls, in economy, it's called frog leaping or leapfrogging, whatever you want to call it. And that is the fact that when you have a city center that is very strong, it gets clogged. And once it gets clogged, the next development is not in the city center, but in a leapfrog away, like you see in Tel Aviv. Okay, Tel Aviv is the city center and the main business core. Okay, the next one is Herzliya, Ra'anana. It's not inside, it's leaping.
City,
it's in the nearest place that it can grow, but not inside. And you notice that in every place in the world, the bigger the company is, the more likely it is to go outside of the center to these satellite cities. Because when you are big enough and you have a lot of attraction for employees, you can go and be wherever you want. You can be in Redmond, you can be in Amazon headquarters that can be in space. People will get there.
But basically, what I get from what you're saying is like we can all just go home and wait for things to change naturally, No need to work on autonomous cars or, try to ease the stress on the roads. Or just sit and wait until big companies will open their offices around the cities and we won't need any longer to get into the cities. Is that it? Bye?
No. First of all, we need to know that we are fighting forces that are huge. It's not small forces. It's not, okay, I'll give Bird scooters and I'm going to resolve something. I'm going to have autonomous car and I'm going to resolve something. It's not about that at all. Currently, we have a revolution in our cities. The big part of the revolution is the micro-mobility. That's the biggest part of the revolution.
Why is micromobility a revolution and autonomous vehicles are not? Except for autonomous are not really there
First
yet.
of all, that's the thing that happened today. But autonomous vehicles are essentially cars. They don't change the lower range of the travels that we have in the city. They can change the higher level. But actually, when you are walking in the city, you are considering, should I walk? Should I drive something small, or should I take a car or a public transportation? Now, we used to walk to about 600 meters, 1 kilometer, something like that. We used to bike to about 3 kilometers, depending where it's hot, whether it's raining. We used to take the car from about 500 meters and longer, and in the center of the city, even we hesitate to take the car because we are afraid what will happen to our parking place because
Nothing
you can't
good.
do small. Okay. So what happened when you take this market and introduce new way of mobility that is as easy as walking or biking? I mean, you don't need parking lot for a scooter.
Right.
You can take it with you into the office. You don't need to think someone's going to steal it. It's very cheap, no insurance. It extends the length of the travel that you are doing from 500 meters by walk or 3 kilometers by bike to about 6 or 7. So it has so many advantages that it just revolutionized the way that people are moving in the city. And the thing that happens now is that no one knows how to tackle it. So they are driving on the sidewalks and they are driving on wherever. Once you tell them, go in the street, that's what municipalities are telling them, go into the road, don't stay on the sidewalks. Once you tell them that, immediately the speed of all the others, the cars and whoever, is dropping down to about 25.
And their speed increases, right?
And their speed increases, therefore it's not that effective to use a car, and more people will join the micromobility. It's accelerating. It's a thing that's accelerating. Mm-hmm. And that's what we are seeing today, but we are only at the beginning of the revolution because no regulatory about it, no insurance, nothing is going on. We don't know how to separate them from pedestrian. We don't know how to defend them from cars. Cars are rushing too fast. That's the reason that it's such a major change.
Okay, so can you draw for me a picture of a perfectly functioning city or city center and steps that need to be taken now in order for us to get there?
Okay, so as I said...
So it's like a roadmap,
yeah.
you know?
So as I said, as city is actually transportation, a good city center need to have people that can get in and out of it. Without it, it's not a center. It's just a neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So by definition, city center need to be able to get a lot of people in and a lot of people out during rush hour. Mm-hmm. So we need to have a lot of mobility options to get people there. We need to know that it's going to be clogged. According to what we see today, many of those streets are going to be fenced out for cars. We see it in New York, in Paris, in London, that streets are being closed for cars, and that's a thing that's going to be more and more. In Tel Aviv, it's going to be, even though the municipalities still haven't decided anything, that's what we're going to see here in Tel Aviv also. So once you take that as assumption, you need to think which kind of mobility can work the best. And currently, it's a combination of micromobility for the last mile, for the inner city round, and a lot of walking, for sure. And it's probably public transport to those locations. I'm saying probably because not taxis, not cars, and not any kind of shared mobility, unless it's with a lot of people, can bring enough people to the city center. It's not enough to keep the city center viable and economic. Only if you have good tube or train that goes to the city center, you can really satisfy the need for people to bring the economy of the city center to work. Otherwise, city centers are going to die. And from what I see, there will be cities that are going to die. They're going to kill, I mean, the city center is going to decay. If you think about downtown, downtown have two meanings. Downtown, it's where the hippie is, it's where everything's going on. But downtown is also where things are already ruined and...
I thought downtown is a business center, no?
It is a business center today.
What I have in my head.
It is a business center today here in Israel. But look at the US at the 70s or 80s. Downtown is the place that used to be the center of the city, but is now ruined. The people that left there are only the people that can't afford better housing, that can't afford to go
I didn't
out
know
of
that.
the city.
Okay.
Cities fluctuate. They rise and decay, rise and decay. That's the way that they rise. And sometimes they decay too much and lose their importance.
Okay,
And it's going to happen.
So the way you see it is unless proper modes of transportation are enabling to enter the city center, the center is going to die and will be eventually abandoned, right?
Yeah.
So some cities will not survive.
It will look either it will be too expensive and only the richest people are going to live there, which happen in some cities today, and then decay, because no one wants to live alone. It's okay, so you are living, there's no one around because it's too rich. It's not a city, actually. It's just buildings with rich people. Or it's going to decay in places that we see in many cities. It's not. That's the two options. Some of it is natural. As I said, city always rises and drop a bit, rises and drop a bit. But transportation is the main key for many of these rise and drop. And currently, we are having micromobility clogging the heart of the city. And when you clog a heart and the veins to it, it doesn't end up well.
Wait, but I thought you were saying micromobility is good. Now you're saying it's clogging.
If it's clogging the cars, if you have also good public transportation to bring enough people to the city, it will work.
So
if
the way you see
it
is micromobility plus public transportation,
definitely,
and bam, we have it, the perfect city.
And of course, you can support that with an autonomous car that behaves like elevator. They are just doing a route around the block.
Like shadows on fixed routes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slowly, you just take and complete the last mile if it's rainy or something like that, and that's it. You don't need more than that.
Okay. One last question. Winter is coming to some cities, and if we say that yes, public transportation and micromobility and limited autonomous shuttles is the way to go, what's the micromobility solution for places with a bad weather, not bad, but regular weather with regular seasons? Is there probably it's a niche, it's an opportunity for some startups to invent something.
Yeah, so I'm thinking really that the smaller elevator, as I call them, are the better solution for these parts. I think that we don't understand how much the electric motor is changing the mobility. Today we are still planning, as an architect, I'm saying it, we are planning as if it's a normal bike. It's not a normal bike. It shouldn't go in lanes. We are planning lanes, we are planning parking lots, we are planning everything as if it's normal bike. It's not a normal bike. It's something that you can put in the trunk of your car, take with you to the train, and take with you to the office. So we shouldn't think about micromobility as a kind of bike. It's something totally different. And the main thing is, let's say in Israel, when you ask business people, why don't you go to work on bike? I mean, if you would ask that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, he's going to say, come on, it's hot, I'm going to get so sweaty. No way I'm going to use it. But if it's electric, you remove that barrier. And we see people that are using these cars even in hot situation, when you have slight incline or something like that you would never see them using bikes. And that with the combination, as I said, of the smallest elevators the horizontal elevators is the way to go, at least to my opinion.
Okay, Yuval, thanks so much. It was
you.
a pleasure having you here, and good luck with thinking more about the cities and the future of them.